Who doesn't love Dick Van Dyke? His name perfectly captures boundless energy and timeless charm. No wonder his career spanned several decades, filled with memorable performances and cinema classics that have enchanted generations of moviegoers. And why not? His comic timing is impeccable, his roles are heartwarming, and his versatility is unparalleled. With a legacy like that, we owe it to ourselves to take a journey through the work of everyone's favorite family performer. It's time to count down the top 10 Dick Van Dyke movies of all time. Number 10. Night at the Museum.
Don't let anything in or out.
Out?
Good luck, son.
Even if it is a relatively late role in his career, 2006's Night at the Museum sees Dick Van Dyke still on top form as Cecil Fredericks, a security guard in the movie's titular museum. But then, how could he be anything else as this comedy about an ancient curse which causes all the displays to come to life at night is perfect fodder for his sense of humor? Of course, it also helps that he has an all-star cast around him in the form of Ben Stiller, Owen Wilson, and Robin Williams to work with. That said, none of these actors were willing to go to the lengths their legendary co-star was. And this is evident in the fact that during one scene where the night guards run up a staircase in pursuit of another character, Van Dyke was the only one who performed the stunt himself.
I'm having a little trouble hearing you, friend. Tequila!
The dinosaur's alive! What do I do? Just tell me what to do!
Read the instructions.
Number 9. The Art of Love.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. I hope you understand that I've got to hit you with this until you die.
Come on, Paul, put that down.
Even as early as 1965, Dick Van Dyke was making hit movies. After all, this was the year he released The Art of Love out into the world. What was the story to this one? Well, in true comedy fashion, it tells the tale of a struggling artist who decides that the best way to make his work go up in value is to fake his own death. Needless to say then, a lot of hilarious moments arise out of the premise, and Van Dyke, in the lead role of Paul Sloan, is responsible for many of these, though it certainly helps that he has a great supporting cast around him too. But if you were wondering whether the artwork done in the film was made by the actor himself, you might be disappointed to know it actually wasn't him. No, instead, the paintings seen on screen were created by Don Cincone, a famous expressionist from Louisiana who was never actually credited for his work here.
Casey, come back in here.
Number 8. The Comic.
Why don't you sit down?
Thank you, Will. Huh? Remember that? What picture was that in?
In keeping with Dick Van Dyke's ability to act as an excellent physical comedian without the need to even say one word, 1969's The Comic sees him play the role of Billy Bright, a silent movie era comic whose talent is only outshone by his ego. Of course, given his ego is so big then, it leads to a variety of problems for him throughout the film's 94-minute runtime. But as this is a comedy at the end of the day, even when things reach their darkest ebb, Van Dyke is always able to bring a sense of levity to the proceedings. One thing he struggled to make light of, though, was a moment which ultimately inspired the film. And this moment took place when, while filming The Dick Van Dyke Show, the Missouri native called Stan Laurel to ask if he could use one of his bits, only to find out the comedy legend didn't own the rights to his own work.
Frank! Frank, I know you're in there! Get out of my house!
Number 7. Lieutenant Robinson Crusoe, USN.
You come across water? You paddle on boat here? You live other island?
In Walt Disney's loose retelling of the classic Daniel Defoe novel, Robinson Crusoe, Dick Van Dyke gets yet another opportunity to show how great of a comedic actor he is. And that's because, in Lieutenant Robinson Crusoe, USN, he plays the titular lieutenant perfectly, with all the required leading man gravitas. Of course, this means plenty of antics for him and his chimpanzee friend, named Floyd, on the supposedly deserted island they've become marooned on. And even more once they realize there's actually a whole tribe of natives who live there too, leading to plenty of laughs for the audience. So much did audiences love this one, in fact, it led to Van Dyke and Disney working together again for a third time just 2 years later, in 1968's Never a Dull Moment. And as to what the first movie they worked on was, well, that might just come up again in a little while, so stay tuned.
And to the world in general, wherever they may be.
Number 6. Divorce American Style.
I needed a place to keep my washer, and my dryer, and my freezer, and my 12 cubic foot refrigerator, with your blue interior to match your walls.
Particularly during his early years, it was rare to see Dick Van Dyke venture out from comedies into more dramatic roles. But that's not because he wasn't more than capable of doing these. No, as is evident in Divorce American Style, he has the acting chops required to break audiences' hearts if he needs to. Sure, there are still comedic elements to this story of a married couple of 17 years going through a breakup. Really, you could argue that above all else, it's still a comedy movie. But given the nature of the script, it means a lot more is needed from the two leads played by Van Dyke and Debbie Reynolds, and they certainly bring their A-games for this one. That said, they weren't the only ones who brought their A-games, as a script by Norman Lear and Robert Kaufman were so highly regarded, it actually got nominated for an Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay.
Oh, no. No.
Hey there, Mr. Harmon. This won't hurt a bit.
Miss Feldman, call Larry Strickland again.
Oh, come on, Mr. Harmon.
At number 5, we have Cold Turkey.
Amos, each smoker in Eagle Rock is taking the initiative to stop smoking.
Well, what about the non-smoker?
Well, he's taking the initiative, too.
While Dick Van Dyke is credited as the lead of 1971's Cold Turkey, and certainly justifies this position with his work here, he's not the only one who makes it such a must-watch. No, alongside him, there's a cavalcade of excellent actors, such as Bob Newhart, Gene Stapleton, and M. Emmett Walsh, helping to raise things up to an even higher level. And in doing so, they take this story of a tobacco company offering $25 million to any town that can agree to collectively stop smoking for 30 days and make it better than it has any right to be. Not that the premise isn't a good one, of course, just that the talent involved elevates it so much more. But this one isn't just notable for the people on screen. No, it's also an important film in that it marks the first ever credited work from Randy Newman, the man who's since provided scores for Hollywood classics like The Natural, Toy Story, and Meet the Parents.
Hand it to me.
If he takes one puff, we're done for.
Amos, quiet. Homer, you don't put that gun away.
Number 4, Fitzwilly.
They've got Albert for what?
For stealing all of the cash and gimbals. He went in and confessed.
That's crazy.
Why would he do that?
1967's Fitzwilly might not be the most well-known film among Dick Van Dyke's back catalog, but it's certainly not one which should be skipped. After all, it features the star on top comedic form as Claude Fitzwilliam, the butler to a wealthy and elderly heiress. Or at least she thinks she's wealthy. In truth, however, her father left her little to nothing. So, in order to keep up her lifestyle then, Fitzwilliam and the rest of her staff take to secretly carrying out a series of thefts, raids, and swindles on her behalf. No prizes for guessing this leads to some seriously funny moments then. And no prizes for guessing that this one was beloved by everyone involved. But it wasn't just the people working on the film who fell in love with it. No, one fan, named Roger Curwood, even went so far as to open a Fitzwilly's-inspired restaurant in Northampton, Massachusetts, almost a decade later.
To create a situation wherein Gimbals will consider it more advantageous to hand the cash over to me than to keep it themselves.
Number 3, Bye Bye Birdie.
Oh, you were molded by me.
Molded?
Yeah, like that Eliza Doolittle who got moldy from Pygmalion. How were you when I found you anyway?
Adding even more to his repertoire, 1963's musical romantic comedy, Bye Bye Birdie, sees Dick Van Dyke play the role of Albert Peterson, a struggling songwriter hoping to get an Elvis Presley-like rock star to sing one of his songs. And in doing so, he believes he can convince his mother to finally let him marry his girlfriend. So, in order to make sure this happens then, Albert arranges for the star performer to travel to a small town in Ohio, where he'll not only put on a farewell gig before being drafted to Vietnam, but also kiss his biggest fan. And this premise leads to a lot of great moments, not just in terms of the comedy on display, but also in terms of the music. Interestingly though, perhaps the thing the film is best known for today, outside of the song, Put on a Happy Face, is the fact it was featured on an episode of Mad Men as part of a fictional firm's ad campaign for Diet Pepsi. Yes, even decades later, it was still finding new ways to be relevant.
In 6 years, I never sold one lousy song. Maybe they weren't lousy enough.
Number 2, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Well, for a mechanically minded man, Mr. Potts.
Try switching it on.
Oh.
A childhood classic and a staple of Christmas-time television, you'd be hard-pushed to find anyone who doesn't love Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. And that's because there's so much whimsy to be found in this tale of a family who goes on a magical adventure in their flying car in order to rescue their grandfather from a far-off land. Really, to list all the classic moments here would take all day. And so many of those moments come from Dick Van Dyke's portrayal of Caractacus Potts, the inventor of the titular vehicle. It doesn't matter if it's his many dance numbers, his performance on the famous title song, or his interplay with his co-stars, it's magic from start to finish. What you may not know, though, is that the writer of this movie had actually already created a hit series beforehand. And that's because he was Ian Fleming, the English novelist most well known for creating the world's most famous spy, James Bond.
But a man has to learn to put those dreams to some practical use. Not just sit around and think about them all the time.
Our number one pick is Mary Poppins. If you haven't already seen 1964's Mary Poppins, Dick Van Dyke's first collaboration with Walt Disney, then you need to go and watch it as soon as possible, because there's a reason it has a reputation as one of the greatest family films ever. And that reason is, it's just as good as everyone suggests, with everything about the story of Julie Andrews' magic nanny, who comes to inject some wonder into the lives of the Banks family, hitting perfectly. Of course, while Andrews is the undeniable star here, some recognition has to be given to Van Dyke too, in his role of jack of all trades, Bert. Sure, it's easy to tease him for his infamous Cockney accent here, but it all just adds to the charm of the character and helps to make the movie the classic it is. Honestly, we can't recommend it enough, and neither could Disney himself as it turned out, because he considered this to be his crowning achievement.
You've got to grind, grind, grind at that grindstone.
And there we have it, the top 10 Dick Van Dyke movies of all time. No doubt you have your own list, so be sure to let us know in the comments below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and get alerted of our next video. We'll hope to see you soon.